It is time to build one of my favourite TBRs of the year, because not only is September the first month of autumn, it is also time for the autumn equinox round of Magical Readathon. So I'm going to be dropping a separate autumn TBR at some point in September, which is going to be full of moody, atmospheric reads, as well as anything that I plan to read for spooky season. And I'm going to be making my way through that TBR throughout the next 3 months. But this one is specifically for September, and my main focus of September, as always, is going to be the Magical Readathon. If this is the first time that you're hearing of Magical Readathon, it is 100% my favorite readathon of the year. It is hosted by G over at Book Roast, and it is a RPG style, D&D style magic school readathon where you pick a magical career and then you have to sit your magical exams to be able to qualify for your chosen career. So the autumn equinox round is a follow-on from the spring equinox, and I am currently still going for Demonologist. This is my final round of Demonologist. I'm going to be moving on to like the higher learning paths that G introduced in the spring equinox next year. But before I do that, I need to wrap up Demonology. So as always for September, I will have 7 books that I need to read, and I'm going to be focusing on fulfilling those prompts in this TBR. I do have other prompts that I can fill if I get through those, but today I'm just going to be talking through the ones that are my priority. So if you would like to get involved in Magical Readathon yourself, I definitely recommend that you do, because I am obsessed, and I will leave G's announcement video linked down below so that you can go ahead and check that out. I do think I'm going to be talking to you guys about 10 books today total. One of my Magical Readathon prompts I'm going to be leaving open and fulfilling it in the moment, but on top of that Demonologist TBR, I also have a couple of arcs and also a couple of books that I'm reading for projects. I also have my Patreon pick to add, so let's bump that count up to 11 books. And September is an incredible month for the publishing industry. I have so many anticipated releases coming out this month. I have made an anticipated releases video for the second half of the year, and I don't know at this point whether I'm going to be picking any of those books up immediately. I know for a couple of them I've ordered special editions, so I'm going to be relying on library holds to read them any sooner before those editions come in, but maybe I'll throw in and mention a few of those at the end that I do also have my eye on. So before we get into those Magical Readathon prompts, I am going to be picking my Patreon pick for September, just in case it changes anything when it comes to the prompts. So if you guys are unfamiliar with this, all of the members of my top tier on Patreon can recommend a book that gets added to this pot, and every month I pick one out and I aim to read it over the couple of months that follow. So for September, I'm not too concerned about what comes out of here. So if it does fulfill a prompt though, that would be a bonus. Let's go with a blue one. I think blue is the colour for this year. That one is Debbie's pick. Oh, the Raven Boys. Damn. I mean, it is about time. But damn, this may actually fulfill one of the prompts. Ooh, it actually doesn't fulfill the prompt that I thought that it would. No. Okay, so this is just an addition to the TBR, but thank you very much, Debbie, because this is very, very suitable for the season, and it's one that I've had on my shelves for years. It also fulfills a very specific niche of young adult fantasy that I really enjoy, especially at this time of year. The Raven Boys is Maggie Stiefvater's, I would say, most popular series. I have read The Wolves of Mercy Falls from her, and I really, really enjoyed her writing, even though I'm not a massive like werewolf paranormal fan anymore. And so I have been really excited to read the Raven Boys. I know that this is about a girl who attends a private school, and I think that she's been told she comes from some sort of magical family, and she has been told that when she kisses her true love, he will die. So she just shouldn't kiss anyone at all, just to be safe. But this year she is drawn into the magical world of the Raven Boys. Now, the specific niche of young adult fantasy that I love is contemporary fantasy, so set in the real real world, but with some sort of supernatural, paranormal, occult element. Things like witches, psychics, which I'm pretty sure is the type of magic that is associated with Blue's family. Anything kind of like spooky, atmospheric, normally set in a small town, and I definitely feel like the Raven Boys is going to fit that bill. So thank you so much to Debbie for adding this to my TBR, because am I ever going to prioritize this otherwise? I mean, I would love to, but who knows how long it would take me to get around to this one. So as that made no difference to my Magical Readathon TBR, we are just going to get stuck straight into those prompts. Now, I do usually have an episode of Shelve or Scrap It for Magical Readathon in both April and September, and at this moment I am still planning on doing that. So some of these books come from the stack, some of them come from my priority TBR, things that I should have probably already read by now, and some of them are just generally from my shelves. Some of these prompts I can swap books in and out of. I think there's one that's very specific. I'm just gonna have to stick with the book that I've chosen, but some of these are tentative depending on whether I end up reading them during Shelve It or Scrap It or just in general reading vlogs or other projects I'm working on. So we'll kind of see what happens. But one that is kind of specific, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to be reading during Shelve It or Scrap It, is for my first subject, which is Conjuration. And for Conjuration this year, I only need to read one book. The course focus is Conjuring Fog, and the prompt is to read a book that either has fog in the title or on the cover. So for that, I'm going to be going with Half City by Kate Golden, which is a book that I've heard a lot of very, very good things about. And once again, I think that this is pretty seasonally appropriate. So if you look in the background of the spires we have here, they are a little bit obscured, which I'm gonna say is fog. It seems fitting with the vibe of the cover, so I'm definitely going to assume that we have fog on there. This one was from the Romantasy Fairy Loot box for February this year, and it is a urban fantasy that I've heard is very reminiscent of old school urban fantasy, things like the Kate Daniels series and the Fever books by Karen Marie Moning, which I haven't read all of those, but I did read Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair last year, which also felt very reminiscent of that genre for me, but with a little bit more of a modern take, which is also what I am hoping for from this. I have also heard this compared to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which, you know, is something that I'm very interested in, but also scares me a little bit because of how into Buffy I am. But this one is following a 21-year-old demon hunter who ends up attending a school for deviant defense. And the person who puts her in contact with this school is somebody who describes himself as a reformed demon. So very much Buffy Angel vibes in the dynamic between those two. And I'm also really interested in the academic setting we have here, because, you know, I love a training academy, a magic school, a tournament, anything with that kind of structure, and I'm hoping that the reviews hold up for me with this one. I do have to read 3 books for Demonology because, of course, I am pursuing a career as a demonologist, and the first one was somewhat surprisingly very difficult for me because the course focus is shadow sprites, and the prompt is to read a book with the word shadow in the book title or the series title. So my spreadsheet isn't 100% up to date, but I did word search the word shadow and I had 20 hits, and I've read all of them. There are 2 books that I could potentially read, neither of which I own. One of them is a final book in a series that I feel like I need to revisit a little bit before I can dive back into it. And one of them is a sequel to a book that I recently gave 5 stars to, but that I am actually a little bit scared of. So for this one, I am going to be going with Tower Lord by Anthony Ryan, which is the second book in the Raven's Shadow series. Now, I recently did a vlog where I read a bunch of epic fantasy books to decide what I'm going to be reading or what we're going to be reading together for my next epic fantasy book club pick, and my favorite of those was Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. However, the catch with that series is that public opinion is that the series goes downhill after the first book. So while I do very much want to revisit this world and these characters, I am a little bit scared of continuing, but this one is kind of like Empire of the Vampire meets the Realm of the Eldlings, where we are following a boy who is taken by his father to join the Sixth Order, which is the sixth religious order in this world. Each order specializes in a specific art, and the order that this boy, who's called Valen, will be joining is the Order of Fighters. So there he forms a lot of close relationships, a brotherhood with the other recruits, and this is essentially his life story that is being told by him as he is being taken to his execution. It is like a fight to the death that he's going to be participating in, and it is a chronological account of his life up until that point and how he got there. Now, I do really like that storytelling style, and I think that Anthony Ryan did a really good job of getting me connected to the characters, so this one also packed an emotional punch. So I am excited to continue, but I have heard that while book 2 is a decent book in and of itself, it is a little bit of a disappointment following Bloodsong. So I am happy that I'll get to continue on with this series sooner rather than later. I'm just hoping I really like it. The second Demonology prompt I actually thought I would have more options for than I do, but the course focus is mortality and rebirth, and the prompt is to read a book that has the word birth or death in the book title or series title. And once again, I did a word search through all of the stuff that I have. Birth, pretty much non-existent. I just have a couple. Death, I had a handful. And once again, I have read all of them, but luckily there are a couple of subscription box books that have come my way recently that have death in the title. So I'm going to be going one of those. Honestly, it's an either or situation. I do think that even though I got this from my shelves, I am going to filter it into the stack, swap it out with something else for the purpose of shelve it or scrap it, because I am going to be reading Death's Daughter by S.A. Barnes, which once again was a romantasy book. This one from April 2026. So I am really happy actually that I'm going to prioritize some of these. This one once again is a magical academy, I think. So I'm not sure whether the university itself is magical, but the main character that we follow is the daughter of death, and the love interest in this one is the descendant of lust. I think that there is some sort of rivalry between them as well. I haven't really heard too much about this one though, so I'm not really sure how it's been received. My final book for Demonology is for Demonic Takeovers, and the prompt is possession, so that is within the title or the theme of the book. So this is one that I probably have more books for if I go through all of the synopses, but I've gone with one that's quite obvious, and that is The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. This one was sent to me by Solaris last year, so thank you so much to Solaris for that. I have read one book from Isabel Cañas before and I really enjoyed it. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, but I enjoyed the writing enough to want to read more from this author. And this one is set in the 1700s, yeah, 1765, and there is a plague that sweeps through the place where our main character lives, and she flees with her wealthy merchant parents and fiance to his family's isolated mine for refuge. Now, all of Isabel Cañas' books, as far as I'm aware, do have a romantic element, and throughout the course of this book, Alba starts to draw the attention of her betrothed's cousin, Elias, who starts to become concerned when Alba shows signs of possession. For elemental studies, I just have to read one book for the course focus of Enchanted Forestry, and this is the easiest of all of my prompts. I have so many books in the stacks and also on my priority TBR that fit this one. I have gone with a book from the stacks though. The prompt is Forest, and that is in the title, on the cover, in the themes of the book. So I have gone for Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This one is a paranormal romance between the alpha of a wolf pack and like the princess or the heir of the vampires. So we have a little bit of rivalry in here, a little bit of enemies to lovers, I believe, and also some light Omegaverse, I think, including Not In. Now, I have already said in this video I'm not a big fan of paranormal romance, but I am a big fan of Ali Hazelwood, so this has been on my TBR for a while because I love Ali Hazelwood, and this is obviously the perfect season to get to it. So I don't know how I'm going to feel about this because of the paranormal element, but I'm willing to give it a try. And as you can see, we have some trees in the background here for the forest prompt. And then my final two prompts are for spells and incantations. The first one is Recollection Charm, and that is to read a book added to your TBR last month. So I think for this one, I have a couple of options because, you know, didn't read all of my TBR for last month, but I think I'm going to be going with Glow of the Everflame by Pen Cole, which is my Patreon book club book for the months of July and August. I did originally plan to start this in the last couple of days of August, but given my current reading speed, it might be right at the beginning of September, which is when I'll also be posting a spoiler video for this book. But this one is the second book in the Kindred's Curse saga, which is what my book club are currently reading through, and I really enjoyed the first book, so I've been really eager to pick this one up. It's following a girl who lives in a world that is ruled by the descendants of the gods, and she's been told her entire life to stay away from these descendants, but one day her mother goes missing without a trace, and as a healer she ends up taking up some of her mother's responsibilities, dealing with the descended, especially when there is a big accident and the healers are called in an emergency. She ends up in a situation where her allegiance between the humans and also the descendants is constantly tested, especially as she has no idea where her mother's gone and she's finding out a lot of things that she did not know about her mother along the way. The second prompt for spells and incantations is the one that I'm leaving open, and it's one that I'm hoping to fulfill during Shelve or Scrap It. It is Intuition in Spell Work, and it is to blindfold yourself, walk towards a bookshelf, and the prompt is to read the 7th book that you touch with your eyes closed. So my plan is to get Curtis to mix up the books in the stacks, and I'll just read, like, I'll touch 7. The 7th one I touch is the one that I read, and I will of course be picking that one in the moment. So that concludes Magical Readathon in terms of the prompts that I actually need. There are extra prompts that I can fulfill, which I will try to do so throughout the month just because I can, and I love a prompt. But for this TBR, I just have 4 more books to talk about. So the first 2 are from the same series because I promised you guys recap videos for all of the books in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas leading up to the release of book 6 in October. So far I've posted the first one and I'm just about finished with A Court of Mist and Fury, so that video is going to be coming very soon, but because I've fallen behind, I should have posted the A Court of Mist and Fury video in July. I now have to read both A Court of Wings and Ruin and also A Court of Frost and Starlight, which this one should be pretty easy. This one, on the other hand, I mean, she looks small, but she's 800 pages. She's not, she's 700. Good. 699. That's not actually that much bigger than A Court of Mist and Fury. I really thought this book was bigger. So these are the 3rd and the 4th book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. This one is technically a Christmas novella, but in case you don't know what this series is about, it is a fae romance series following a young girl who is hunting for her family. She's very poor. She is responsible for their survival and finding their food, and she's so desperate that she kills a wolf, even though she does suspect that it is a shape-shifting fae sentinel, which is indeed what it turns out to be. And a fairy comes from the fairy lands of Prithian to take her life in exchange for the life of the fae that she took, but instead of killing her, he makes a bargain that she will come and live on his lands and live out the rest of her days there. And then finally, I just have 2 arcs for September, both of them from Penguin Michael Joseph, so thank you very much to Penguin for that. The first one is a romantasy with a very typical synopsis, but it's a synopsis that I like, so I'm kind of excited for this one, and it is Harbinger by Geneva Lee. This one is following a girl who goes through a magical ceremony, I think to reveal her powers, but what it actually reveals is that she is a harbinger of war. So she is hunted down by assassins that have been sent by the noble families of this realm, and she has to team up with the most feared man in the world to save herself, which, you know, I'm always here for that. This one is released, I believe, on the 10th of September in the UK, but I think it's a little bit later for the US. Still September though, if you're interested in this one. And the second arc that I have is actually released a little bit before that. It's for right at the beginning of the month on the 3rd of September, and it is Tailwind by Olivia Hayward. I am a little bit unsure about this one because it is another sports fantasy. I'm not sure whether this one is a romantasy. It doesn't say anything explicitly about a romance romantic element. No, it's actually more about female empowerment, I think, but this one is following a young woman who is a steward for a dragon rider, and when the dragon rider is injured, she sees an opportunity to put on his helmet and to race in his stead. I am not a big fan of sports in general, but the sports book that I've read was Sports Romance. It's the Off-Campus series, and I did enjoy that. So just because I don't like sport very much in real life doesn't mean I won't enjoy it in fiction. It's just my lack of interest in sport makes me less inclined to want to read sports fantasy, but I'll definitely be giving it a go while I have it in my hands. And then in terms of anticipated releases, there are a few. I have 6, I think 7 actually, for September. The one that I'm most excited for is definitely one that I'm not going to be reading this month, which is The Knave and the Moon by Rachel Gillig. It's the sequel to The Night and the Moth, but I have ordered the Fairy Loot edition, so I'm going to be relying on Libby to be able to read this anytime sooner than the Fairy Loot edition arrives, which is going to be a few months. So I imagine it's going to take a while to get to me. And then everything else that's coming is either something that I am going to receive or like have on pre-order, but I'm not in a massive rush to get to it because it's the first book in a series, like Tempest by Victoria Aveyard and The Sweetest Fiend by Raven Kennedy, or it is a sequel but I'm not quite ready to read it yet, and that is for Deadbeat by Leigh Bardugo and also Burn of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I also have a couple more, but realistically, I don't actually think I'm going to be getting to any in the month. The one that I'm most desperate to read is, of course, The Knave and the Moon. So here are all of the books that I'm hoping to read in September. Magical Readathon is, of course, my priority, so even if I don't read these specific books, I will definitely be completing a Magical Readathon at TBR. Down in my comments, let me know if you are participating in Magical Readathon and which book from your TBR are you the most excited to get to. But if you would like to let me know that you were here but you don't feel like you have anything to say, leave me a raven/crow emoji for The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, and thank you once again to Debbie for adding this to my TBR. I'm actually quite excited. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you would like to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.